Hello all and welcome back to Finominal UK for another portfolio review. In today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the Lindsell UK equity funds, where we'll take an initial look at the fund manager's fact sheet. So to summarise the fund's objective, obviously looking to invest in UK equities with at least 70% of its assets in the shares of companies incorporated or domiciled in the UK. It should be noted that up to 10% of assets may be invested in worldwide companies which are listed on an exchange in the UK. And to note on the assets under management, quite a popular fund indeed, with 1.19 billion of AUM. Let's look now at the fund manager's benchmark, which, as we've noted there, is the FTSE All Share Total Return Index, which, as we're predominantly investing in UK equities, seems the most appropriate benchmark, which we will also be using initially as well. Now to note on share class information, we can see OCF starting from 0.52% and up to 0.67%, and I will also be basing this analysis off of the highlighted share class shown. So relatively expensive, I will note, even for an active fund, but let's see if these fees are justified, and let's find out on Finominal. So within my dashboards at Finominal, I've created this as a dynamic portfolio. So what that means exactly, if I edit this, I've rebalanced this button, press here, and I've inputted that ISIN as shown, 100% holding, and then that gives us complete return history from inception. Now, based off of Lindsell most recent holdings report as of the 31st December 2025, I was then able to input those holdings on the platform. So we've got current holdings data along with full track record history as well. And I've selected the benchmark as the FTSE All Share to note. So now that is established, let's continue with our analysis, where I will initially put this through the portfolio analyzer. Okay, so let's look at since inception data, where we can see total returns over the last 19.7 years have been 337.82% for Lindsell UK equity funds versus the FTSE All Share at 262.1% total return. CAGR has also been higher at 7.8% versus 6.7% for the benchmark. Slightly less volatility as well since inception data for Lindsell versus the All Share, and better drawdown protection as well, saving about -6% since inception, and a slightly higher Sharpe ratio as well. And looking at that performance benchmarking as well, it does look initially like an attractive fund, other than when you start to see this period here. But let's change the time frame now and look at more recent history. Let's look at the last 5 years. Okay, so in doing so, we can see a very different story indeed than we initially saw. We can see total return is, as we negative, -5.12% over the last 5 years versus the FTSE All Shares return of 71.61%. CAGR has been negative at -1% versus the All Share at 11.4%. Slightly higher volatility at 13.3% versus 12.9%. Higher max drawdown as well, -23.32% versus the FTSE All Share at -13.13%. Negative Sharpe of -0.32 versus a positive Sharpe of 0.64 for the All Share. So certainly a different story if we change the time frame, that is for sure, I will say. But let's look now to asset classes and markets, 100% in equities, as we'd expect to see, where I am noting just a little over half of this fund invested in small cap, with then 37% in large and a small sliver in mid at 9%. And we can see 100% in the UK. So fantastic to see investing as saying on the tin, should I say. Let's look now to sectors and versus the benchmark, where we can see quite an overweight in information tech, with 30.3% allocation for the Lindsell UK equity funds, which is a 25.3% difference than the FTSE All Share. And we can also see sector bets in consumer staples as well at 22.6%, as well as industrials at 18.4%. And again, we can see those increased weights versus the benchmark, as shown by that green difference bar as well. Interesting to note, nothing invested in healthcare and nothing invested in energy either, which is comparable against the benchmark of which we're looking at. So main points to take away from sectors, we're seeing sector bets in information tech and consumer staples, and you could say financials, but mainly information tech is what I will note. Let's look now to alpha and factor exposures, where I will change this, to be fair, reset to since inception data. Okay, well, let's look at return-based factor exposures. Main thing I'm pointing out from here seems to be a negative value factor exposure. If we scroll down, we can see that exactly a minus 0.4 value factor beta, and a minus 0.2 momentum factor beta, and a positive 0.2 size factor beta. Worth noting on that particular one. Let's look now at alpha attribution with alpha consistency of 12 out of the last 20 years. So not the best, but still. Cumulative alpha 128.64%. Where let's look now to risk. As mentioned, we can see we've had no return over the last 5 years, so I'm not going to change it over the last 5 years to see that, as we know. But I will keep this as since inception data, where we've got a lot of actual returns data here to look at drawdowns. So overall, it's been quite similar, I would say, to the FTSE All Share, though in most recent times we have seen significantly deeper drawdowns than the All Share, which is interesting to note, as that hasn't always been the case, especially just after the GFC. There we saw slightly deeper drawdowns here as well, 2010, as well as in 2016 as well. So certainly interesting to note we're seeing that deeper drawdowns in more recent times from 2022 onwards. Okay. We can also see the scenario analysis as well, exactly Lehman bankruptcy, Greek debt crisis, market sell-off. So interesting to note for this particular one. I'm going to take it over to the asset comparer now, where we're going to compare the Lindsell Train UK equity funds with one of the IA benchmarks. So let's go for UK All Companies Index. I am also going to go for the UK Technology Total Return Index. As we saw, this is having the highest correlation to tracking error against all of these standard benchmarks. So interesting to note. And we will also put in the FTSE All Share Index as well. So now we've imported all of those. Let's press Analyze and head over to the asset comparer for the latter part of our analysis. So the main thing that pops out to me straight away is that close tracking to the UK Technology Total Return Index, which is not that surprising, I would say, especially with that 30% allocation in technology. Though also looking at this, it looks phenomenal. You could say the Lindsell Train UK equity funds against the IA UK All Companies Index, as well as the FTSE All Share. But let's actually change this now and look to the last, let's say from 2020. Okay, let's scroll down, 2020 update, and now let's have a look what we will see, which as we initially saw from the analysis, I think will tell quite a different story, which it has. So against all of the assets shown here, Lindsell Train UK Equity Fund has underperformed every single one of them, with the FTSE All Share being the highest performing asset shown, followed by the IA UK All Companies Index, and then the UK Technology Total Return Index. If we go over to fundamentals, if we look at breakdown by market cap, obviously these are indexes, so UK, not too much to note on that, so apologies on that. But if we look to factors, this is where things will get a little bit more interesting, I will say, especially noting quite similar negative value factor betas to the value. So we're seeing minus 0.4 as mentioned for Lindsell Train UK equity, which is comparable to the UK technology total return at minus 0.3. Also bang on for momentum at minus 0.2 for the momentum factor beta. And again, we can see the risk sources as shown here as well. But I'm going to end on the statistics tab here, where overall, I think it's quite clear to see that Lindsell Train UK Equity Fund has had a very good run initially, I would say, but over the last 5 years, we look at CAGR alone, okay, 0.81%, not even a percent, versus the other assets shown here, FTSE All Share 13.11%. Passive fund, and you're paying 0.67% for the Lindsell Train UK Equity Fund, is what I would note. But that brings me to the end of this analysis, so I do hope that was helpful and informative. And as always, if there are any particular funds or portfolios you'd like me to review next, please do leave them in the comments below. But other than that, please do like, subscribe, and I shall see you all in the next one. Thanks all.